Hello and welcome to Robin's Crochet Corner. Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to do a back loop basic single crochet. That's a back loop basic single crochet. We've already done our chain and our single crochet in the chain, and now we've chained one and we turned. Now if you look at each one of their stitches, you have those V's. Each V is a stitch. And there's two different loops. Now normally, if you remember, we do a single crochet in the hole that's there underneath those two loops there that look like a V. But in a back loop single crochet, we're only going to be working with the loops on the top. And if you look, there's a front loop, which is the one closest to you, and then there's a back loop in that V. And that's the one we're going to use, is this little back loop right there. And we're going to take our hook and we're going to make sure that we're holding the stitch here to keep the tension on the shaft. We're going to slide it down and we're going to insert into the back loop. Can you see that? So now there's the front loop right there and there's the back loop. We're going to yarn over and bring up a loop. And we're going to make sure when we slide it back on there that these two loops are the same tension. If they're not, then tighten them up. Then yarn over and pull through two loops. Very important that you keep your tension so that if it's too tight, I tell all my students that if it's too tight, it's not right. That means you have to change it. So if you're sliding down the shaft and getting tighter, you're not holding the stitch to keep it so that you have a little tiny bit of a air hole there as you slide down. If you don't do that, then it has a tendency to get tighter, and then when you try to pull it through, it doesn't do that. So the stitch is the shaft, so you want to make sure that you pull that down and hold it and make sure that there's an air hole. Next stitch is there's the top loop, the back loop there, and we're going to do that again. We're going to insert into the back loop. We're going to yarn over, pull up a loop. Make sure both of these are the same tension. Yarn over, look for that little hole, and pull through both loops. If you do that every single time and make sure that your tension is right with those two stitches, you will not have any trouble pulling that through. And you want to make sure that it's the same size as the shaft, which is this part of the hook. Again, we're going to insert into the back loop, yarn over, turn our hook so that we're not pulling anything else up. The mouth needs to be down in that process, and then slide it back down and pull through both loops. So now we've got three, and if you see, we're starting to create a ridge here. And that ridge is going to give us the texture that we're looking for when we work on our little trivet that we're going to. So we're going to put the hook in the back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, making sure they're both tensioned the same, and then slide through that loop like that. You see how easy that goes through? If you don't do that, let me show you what happens. You go through the back loop, you pull up a loop, and then you slide it back and you say, oh, the tension's good. And then what happens is when you go to yarn over again, is that you haven't held that stitch, and watch how hard it is to get through it. See how I'm pulling on the loop that I have underneath? That's because I didn't make sure that I maintained the stitch tension. Tension is everything in crochet. If you want to have nice even stitches, then tension is going to be your friend. Take your time and yarn over, make sure that the mouth is down so you're not grabbing any of the yarn, and pull through both loops. Every time, if you make sure that that is the same size as the shaft, you back loop only, you yarn over, you pull up a loop, you slide it back down on the shaft again, and now you're going to make sure when you yarn over that you've got that same, and you've got that little hole there so that it can slide back through. And when you do that, you get very even stitches all the way along. You can see how even they are just by looking at the V's. See how the V's all look the same size? It tells you that you've got your even tension. If you're having difficulty and you see that, that means it's not right. That means, as like I said before, if it's too tight, it's not right. So it's important that we go into that back loop, we yarn over, mouth down, pull up a loop, slide it back so that they're the same, yarn over, and when we slide back down again, that we make sure that we're holding that so that it doesn't get tighter as it goes down the neck. Very, very important to do. So each time, so I'm just going to work my way all the way across to the end. Now when you get to the very end, it's going to look a little different because we've done a chain 1 from the previous row, and then we also have a stitch. And a lot of times if you've ever done a project or that it has gotten longer, more stitches on one row than it does on the other, usually it happens on the end because we're not sure what is a stitch and what isn't a stitch. And remember what I told you about stitches, the top of the stitches are always going to have V's. So when we get to the very end, we're looking for V stitches. And if you look at this, it can be a little confusing because we have a loop there, we have a loop there, but we have a V. If you can see, that's not even part of it because that's from our previous stitch. See, there's the back loop and the front loop. So we have 3 things going on here. We have a loop here, a loop here, and a loop here, but we do have a V. And with that V, we have a back loop, and that back loop is right there, right there. So we're just going to put that little baby right in there. Remember, it's a little bit tougher on the end sometimes because it's the end and you've done a lot of things in there. You bring up a loop, maintain the stitch, and bring up a loop through 2. And there we have our back loop single crochet all the way across. We have 24 stitches. That's what we should have is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. We have 24 stitches, and that's what we're supposed to have. And as you can see, both sides are even, and we have even stitches all the way across. So let's go ahead and practice that. And we're going to do quite a few rows on this today to try to get the inside of our trivet done. Now that we have the correct amount of rows, we have to do our first border. We're doing an inner border, and in order to do that, we have chain 1 we're going to turn, and then we're going to place a marker. And there's lots of different markers that you can use, but whenever I'm working, I a lot of times use a contrasting thread or yarn because using plastic, ones that lock in, it makes it harder to move around. There are times when I would use that. In this project, I used a contrasting yarn, and I'm going to place that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in the same corner. And I'm going to do a regular single crochet. So I'm going into the hole underneath both of those loops. So I'm going to do a yarn over, bring up a loop, make sure that both of these pieces of yarn are the same, yarn over, pull through 2. So I've done the corner single crochet. From this point forward all the way across for 22 more stitches, I'm going to do the back loop again. So we're going to go all the way across the row just like we've done in all the previous stitching that we've done on this project in every row. And this will make a total of 30 rows that have that texture with the back loop only. And we're coming up on now 19, 20, 21, 22. Now we've done a single crochet in the corner with our marked stitch, and then we did 22 across for the back loop only single crochet. And now it tells us that we need to do a single crochet, a chain, and then another single crochet in the corner. We're not going to do a back loop. We're just going to go back in here, and here's how we find where the stitch is. Again, we have that V that we're looking for. There's the extra stitch, and here's the hole for it. So we're going to go into here. We're going to do a regular single crochet. We're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to do another single crochet. And what this does, it creates a corner to your project. And now we can work down the next side because we've got that corner done. Now, in the previous projects that we've done a contrasting yarn along the sides, but we wanted it to be that way because let me show you this. We wanted it to have that look of texture with the border. Can you see that? It goes up and down. In this project, though, we want it to be a solid look. So that's why we're using the same color so we don't create that high and low. You can't visually see it as well as you would on a contrasting color. Now, once we have the corner done, we now have to go down and create the same amount of stitches in these 29 rows as there are on the side we just did that was in the back loop. And in order to do that, we have to decrease. Well, we're not going to do a regular decrease. We're going to do it a little bit differently. So here's what we're going to do. Our pattern, and I don't know if you can, there we go. Our pattern is going to tell us here that we have to have a single crochet, chain, single crochet in the corner, which we did. And then it tells us we have to single crochet in the first stitch, single crochet on the ridge, and then do that 3 times. So we're going to create 6 stitches. We're going to single crochet in the ditch, single crochet on the ridge, and do that 3 times. So we're going to single crochet in the ditch, and then we're going to single crochet on top of the ridge, and that's number 1. Then we're going to go in the ditch again, on top of the ridge again, and that's number 2. And then we're going to go into the ridge again, and then we're going to go into the top of the ridge, and that gives us number 3. So we did that 3 times, which is what the pattern tells us to do. Now we're going to start doing some decreases, and in order to do that, we're going to single crochet in the ditch, single crochet on the ridge, but then we're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet on the ridge that's after that. That'll decrease it 1 stitch. So let's do that. I'm going to single crochet in the ridge, single crochet on top of the ridge, skip the ditch, and then go back on top of the ridge again. And now what we've done is we've pulled that together and we've left 1 less stitch that we normally would have. After that, we have to do that 3 more times because it's telling us to do it 4 times. So we have to go in the ridge, on top of the ridge, skip the ditch, and on top of the ridge again. And that's number 2. In the ditch, single crochet on the ridge, skip the ditch, single crochet. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in the ditch. So we did our 3, there's our corner. We did 1, 2, 3 in the ditch and the ridge. Then we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochet in the ditch, single crochet in the ridge, skip, single crochet on the ridge, and then we'll have 1 ditch left over, and we single crochet in the ditch. On side 3, it's telling us to do the same thing in the corner that we did in the last one. Now, it's a little different with this because we're working off of a chain. So we're going to go into the chain corner, single crochet, maintaining our tension, chain 1, and single crochet into the same stitch. Here we go. Into the same stitch. And now what we've done is we've created another corner. In the 3rd row, we're now going to single crochet in each of the next 22 chain. So $22 stitches across. So with this, we have your corner, 22 across the end of the row where the chain was. And now we're going to do the same thing for row 4. We're going to single crochet in the corner. We're going to chain 1. Single crochet in the same corner. And now we've created our corner again. So if you look here, we've got, you know, a couple of corners done. We've got our marker over here, and we're on our last corner. Again, because we had to decrease here to get the same amount of stitches, we're going to have to do something very much comparable here. So we're going to single crochet on this one on the ridge. And then we're going to single crochet in the ditch and on the ridge 2 times. In the ditch, on the ridge, in the ditch, on the ridge. That was 2 times. All right, so this is what we have so far. And then what it calls for us to do is single crochet in the ditch and single crochet on the ridge, and then we're going to skip the ditch and single crochet on the ridge, and we're going to do that 5 times. So we're going to single crochet in the ditch, single crochet on the ridge, single crochet, skip the ditch, and single crochet on the ridge. That's number 1. Single crochet in the ditch, single crochet on the ridge, skip the ditch, single crochet on the ridge. And now what we're going to do is the last several rows. We're going to single crochet in the ditch, single crochet in the ridge, single crochet in the ditch, and here's where it gets a little tricky. We're going to single crochet now in the beginning space or the beginning corner of the original one. So there's where that original stitch was, right here. We're going to single crochet on that, and then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip. In order to do a slip stitch, this is what we have to do. We're going to slip into the beginning stitch, bring up a loop, and then bring it directly through the loop on the hook. And what we've done now is we've done a full border all the way across, all the way around. We can remove the marker now because we don't need that anymore. And we're going to now finish this off because we're going to chain 1 and cut the yarn. And then we're going to just pull this through like that, and we're going to tighten the yarn. So now what we've done is we've now locked that in, and we have a nice little square that we can work from to do our outer border. Okay, now that we have our 4 borders done and we've secured our border from the inner border, we now need to do the little handle that goes to hold the trivet up, you know, if you want to hook it up on a wall or something like that. And we're also got to do the outer border. The outer border is going to be done in all back loop only stitches, and we need to make sure that it hangs. You put the hanger where you want it to be. So the first thing we need to do is we need to attach our contrasting yarn, and I'm going to go and find the back loop of the center chain that we did in this corner. So if you look at this, we did a single crochet and then a chain and then a single crochet. So I'm going to go on the back loop of that chain. I'm going to go ahead and pull a slip stitch through that chain, and then I'm going to hold both my yarn and my tail, and I'm going to do a chain 1. And then I'm going to do a single crochet in the same back loop. And make sure when you're all done that everything is the same tension before you do the single crochet. All right, once we got the single crochet done, I like to be able to lock my tail in for the first pass. Basically, it keeps you from having to work those ends in at the very end of your project. So let's go ahead and hold that right behind the work like you see here. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a back loop, and I'm going to take the hook and go underneath that tail, and then go ahead and work underneath it for the stitches, and then just hold it in place and do a single crochet, making sure your tension is proper. And then if you do that through like 6-8 stitches, it'll allow you to have that tail already secure to some degree before the end of the project, and it makes it much less time consuming later on. I do this a lot when I'm working with rows, when I'm changing yarn. I use this method a lot when I'm working with different colored yarns and I'm attaching something new to it. I'm working through it. See how I've now pulled this taunt, and you can see how that's hidden. And then I can go ahead and use the rest of that tail to go back and forth a couple times to really lock it in so it doesn't unravel later on when someone's using the project or using the trivet. So we now have 24 stitches across plus the corner stitch. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, and then the corner stitch. We're going to now do 3 single crochet in the corner chain from the previous round so that we can now create a corner. Last time we created a corner by doing a chain 1. A single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. In this one, we're doing 3 single crochets in the corner, and then we're going to do 24 across again. And we're going to do this 3 times. And when we finish that, we will be back. All right, now we've got all 4 of our borders done, and we're getting ready to make our holder or a little hanger that goes on the end of the trivet. The first thing we have to do is we have to finish doing the corner. So we started with 1 single crochet in the corner. We're going to do 2 more, and then to finish that off, we're going to slip in into underneath both of the loops on that original single crochet. And now we have 3 single crochet in every corner to create our trivet. The trivet itself, the body of the trivet is done, and it's looking pretty good. But now we want to make that little handle up there. We're going to go ahead and chain 19. (16, 17, 18, and then 19). All right, so now we have 19 chain, and we're going to do 18 slip stitches starting at the second chain from hook. So we're going to skip that first chain, and we're going to go into the loop here at the second chain from hook, and we're going to go 18 times. So 1, 2, 3. And you want to make sure, just like you do in your single crochets, that your loop that you're bringing through is not too tight. You want your chains to be the same as any of your single crochets that you're doing. You want them to have the same soft tension that you had before. If it gets too tight, it's not right. So we want to make sure that we go all the way down, and we want to make sure every single chain is the same by just sliding it back on the shaft and then going through. In this way, we're looking more for not making the loop that's on the hook get any tighter as it slides down. We want to keep that little air hole there. By doing this, you will make sure that every single one of the chains that you're working with and the slip stitches are going to be even all the way down the chain. That's 16. I'm sorry, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now, once we get to the 18th slip, oops, I dropped that one, didn't I? Pick that back up. The 18th slip, we're going to slip in the next single crochet on the trivet and cut the yarn. And then we're going to finish this off. So we're going to cut that off. We're going to pull that through. We're going to lay that over top of the single crochet that it actually came through, and we're going to thread our needle. We're going to take it and we're going to skip the next one, go in both loops of the following single crochet, pull that so that it's taut, but not pulling it. Make sure it's laying over top of the second one, and then we're just going to go through that center of the slip stitch there and down through the work on the trivet as well. And then we're just gonna make it so that it's nice and even. We're just gonna weave this through the back of the work, And we're going to do that pass a couple times. And we want to make sure this is pretty secure. So on this one, we're going to go back and forth another extra time. So I'm going to do, go back this way, and then I'm going to turn around and do one more the other way, just to make sure that that's nice and secure, so that when people are hanging, it's not going to come loose on them. And once you do that, then you can go ahead and cut your yarn really close. And being careful not to cut the yarn that you just worked with, because that would be not so good. And we've got our loop now to be able to hook our handle into the second chain, a second single crochet to the right of the center. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of yarn that matches, and we're going to use our needle, our tapestry needle, and we're just going to connect that so that it's adhered to the trivet itself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run opposite direction of where I want the yarn to actually be. The project, I'm going to hook it here. So I want to run it this way. So now I'm doing the first pass of hiding the tail into the back of the work. I like to do this first so I don't have to do it later, and it seems to work pretty well this way. I go as close as I can, and then I'm going to come back and do the same thing. And now I'm going to have a nice tight piece of yarn against the trivet to work with. All right, and you can take that little tail that you have right there and cut that off. There we go. Cut that off. And then I'm going to take and lay this on top of, and I'm going to come through the bottom of the trivet, through both pieces of that end piece, and then come right into these two loops of that single crochet. And now remember, because I did it in the back, it's nice and tight. And I'm going to come into that center piece, and I'm going to come down through that piece of trivet as well. And make that nice and tight, okay? And then we're going to turn it over and look at it and say, okay, well, it needs to have another piece like right here. You can see that's not secure. So we're going to come back up through here, make that nice and tight. And by doing this, we're following the same grain of the stitching. And we're going to go back through here like this. And now it's nice and tight, and it looks pretty good. We're going to go back through these loops again. Oh, goodness gracious. Got that caught around. See, we do those kind of things. There we go. And we're going to pull that through. And then we're going to turn it. And we're going to secure it again. One more time. This way. And remember, we already did it, a couple other ways, so we're good. And then we're just going to pull this one more time. And that makes it pretty secure. Going to cut that off. We're now going to go down to this last piece of salmon color, and we're going to secure that as well. Remember, we've already done a line of this already, so I'm just going to turn this around, and I'm going to go through the salmon color first, and then I'm just going to follow in that same spacing that I did when I did the single crochets on top of it. And I'm going to go through like this, making sure it's nice and taut. And we're going to just go ahead and cut that yarn. And there is your trivet with a handle. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and push the like button. Until then, happy crocheting.